The BBC has formally apologised to Donald Trump after one of their programmes edited a speech he gave in 2024 before the last election.
A major talking point in the US, of course, has been Donald Trump's threat to sue the BBC now after that Panorama program edited up his January the 6th speech, trying to fit him up as encouraging violence that followed down there at those riots at Capitol Hill. Here's a reminder of what the BBC put to air.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
Now, this sort of egregious editing and misleading media coverage doesn't really surprise a lot of us, but as I put to our US contributor Kristen Tate, Donald Trump certainly won't be taking this lying down.
Good for him. I mean, this was broadcast 1 week before the 2024 presidential election here in the United States. The BBC did this intentionally. They took out the parts of Trump's speech from January 6th, 2021, where he repeatedly said for his protesters to be peaceful. It's absolutely deceptive editing. This potentially reached tens of millions of people on all of the BBC's various platforms. And they are right to be called out by Trump. Some higher ups at the BBC have already stepped down over this controversy. And look, Chris, it's okay to have an opinion. That's fine. It happens all the time on TV. What's not okay is to disguise an opinion as hard news. You know what that is? That is actually trying to interfere with an election, which is exactly what this was. And good on Trump for calling them out. I hope they pay up.
Trump was furious with the edit and threatened to sue the BBC for over $1 billion.
Are you going ahead and suing the BBC?
Well, I guess I have to. Why not? Because they defrauded the public, and they've admitted it, and their top echelon.
Director General and the CEO
This
both
is
resigned.
within one of our great allies. This is supposedly our great ally. BBC, the government has a chunk of that one, I guess. But that's a pretty sad event. They actually changed my January 6th speech, which was a beautiful speech, which was a very calming speech, and they made it sound radical. And they actually changed it. What they did was rather incredible. They're showing me the results later on, the results of what they did, how they butchered it up. But it was very dishonest, and the head man quit, and a lot of the other people quit.
The BBC went into meltdown and then desperately apologised to Trump.
This all started with the Panorama edit. I've just got this is just breaking news, Emma, which relates to this story. We're just hearing that the BBC has apologised to Donald Trump over the editing of a speech which appeared on Panorama in 2024, adding it was an error of judgment and the programme will not be broadcast again in this form on any BBC platforms. So that's the BBC apologising directly to the President of the United States over the editing of a speech that appeared on Panorama in 2024. But Emma, by the sounds of it, there might be another apology to make.
Yeah, so that was the one that's caused such a furore over the last week or so that resulted on Sunday night in the Director General of the BBC, the big boss, Tim Davie, resigning. Also, the Chief Executive of BBC News, Deborah Turness, both of those leaving their roles. Then the BBC Chair apologising for what he called an error of judgment. So this really has been the focus of enormous attention.
And in another blow, it has come out that this was not an isolated incident.
Now we're talking about this Newsnight programme. And what's really interesting about it, according to The Telegraph, who've broken this story, a live guest straight after that speech was played out on Newsnight pointed out that it had been cut incorrectly, changing the meaning. And according to The Telegraph, nothing was done on air to say apologise or to address that.
Yeah, to alert people that it had happened.
Yeah, and then the next morning in an editorial meeting, it said that it was discussed there, concerns were raised, nothing was done then. There has been a response from the BBC, a BBC spokesperson saying the BBC holds itself to the highest editorial standards. This matter has been brought to our attention and we are now looking into this.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed Trump will be taking legal action over the incidents.
Thank you, Bev. There's a lot of questions in one there. I will say, I know the president has a very good relationship with Prime Minister Starmer. You have been there, you've seen them in their interactions, you've questioned both leaders in your time joining us when we've gone to the United Kingdom a few different times now. However, he has always been very frank when he disagrees with leaders, even whom he has a good relationship with. And the BBC, being a fair news organization, is definitely an outlet. I think these two leaders would disagree. The president has made it very clear that this is a leftist propaganda machine that is unfortunately subsidized by British taxpayers, and he thinks that's extremely unfortunate for the great people of the United Kingdom and Great Britain. And I think that the president was deeply concerned by the editing, the purposeful and dishonest editing of his speech that was so clearly fake news, and he rightfully dubbed that term many years ago, and this is a classic example of that. We see it in the United States all the time. We see it now in the United Kingdom. As you know, the president's external legal counsel has filed a lawsuit against the BBC. We expect that to continue, and whether they apologize or not is up to them. Thanks for being here, Bev.
Reform UK leader Nigel Farage slammed the BBC, calling for change to the network.
So what we're seeing, folks at home, is, and I said this to you a couple of days ago, this is institutional bias from the BBC. It isn't one outfit, it isn't one firm that have been brought on to make documentaries or anything else. This runs deep throughout the BBC. So let me ask you at home, when is enough enough? When is the time to really do something serious about the charter, about the licence fee? I'd love to get your thoughts. Tweet hashtag Farage on GB News or email farage@gbnews.com.
Even podcaster Joe Rogan exploded on the BBC and the left-wing media.
So they decided to paint a different version of what he said, and they're fucked now. They're fucked.
BBC?
60 Minutes did it with the Kamala Harris interview, but they did it the other way. They made it look like she had a good answer. Which is like, it's so crazy. Like, you guys are supposed to be the news.
Right.
You're not supposed to be the propaganda arm of whatever party you support. This is nuts. This is fucking nuts. And BBC is always like the one you quote when you want to seem smart. I was watching this thing on the BBC. Oh, yeah. Dude, you watch the BBC? You must be fucking smart.
And it seems the BBC wasn't the only media company to edit Trump's speech, which could lead to far-reaching consequences for these publications on a global scale.
Well, it turns out that now it's actually not just the BBC, right? So Libs of TikTok reported that actually a Swedish company called SVT also edited the speech, as well as an Aussie company called ABC. So not the same as ABC in the United States, but an Australian company. So now we're going to see how many other businesses actually took part in this mass misinformation campaign, truly, because it led to so much lawfare. I don't think President Trump's just going to let it go.
Well, certainly the latest statement, it literally says we are not going to let this go. So, I mean, you know what's going to happen there.